Miguel. Thank you, Neil, for your kind words and for your support. Let's see if I can do the sharing thing without causing too much damage. Are you guys seeing this?
Yes.
Okay, good enough.
We do.
Thank you. And let's begin. Very glad to be here today. We have put a lot of effort in this, and we are very happy with the turnaround and the participants that have accepted our invitation to be part of this forum. Really, really looking forward to make some changes which are very much needed in the island in this area. I will try in 10 minutes to summarize where we are regarding the cases, the case law, basically where we are right now, what's U.S. main contention, and where we see that this might be going. Okay, the first thing is to mention the court cases that caused this situation, which are favorable to Puerto Rico. They are good for us. The first case is called the Vallejo case, U.S. versus Vallejo. And basically, this is a person that he used to live in the States and he moved to Puerto Rico. And while he was in the States, he received something called supplemental security income. We call that SSI. It's not Social Security, it's another program. And basically, that program gives money to people that has some special needs because of the age, because being blind or being disabled. That program actually was begun in 1972. When it began in 1972, Puerto Rico was not part of the plan. We remain in the old plan, which is called AABD, which it provides for lesser benefits than the SSI. Okay, and strangely enough, the SSI, it applies to the states, to Washington, D.C., and also applies to the Northern Mariana Island. So some possessions actually are part of the SSI. Okay, so when Mr. Vallejo came to Puerto Rico, the U.S. government sued Mr. Vallejo because they said he should not be entitled to keep receiving SSI benefits because he was now living in Puerto Rico, and they tried to collect $28,000 from him. He went to court. He won in the district court last year. He won in the appellate court, in the circuit court earlier this year, in April of this year. And now the case, the U.S. Government has requested a review from the federal Supreme Court. Okay, that was done on September of this year, last month. And Vallejo has not replied yet. Okay, so the case at this point in time, Mr. Vallejo is winning, but there might still be a review at the federal level. Remember that the Supreme Federal Court is not obligated to see the cases. It's only a voluntary thing if they decide to see the cases. The next case that we have, it's what we call a test case because it's a case that involves a lot of plaintiffs, different situations and different programs, okay? And this case was spearheaded by U.S. Citizens for Equal Protection, which was Enrique Fernandez is part of that group, the president of that group, and he will be speaking shortly. Basically, here we have 9 plaintiffs. Some of them were living in Puerto Rico their whole life. Some of them were living in the U.S. and moved to Puerto Rico, as with the case with Mr. Vallejo. And this second case, it includes SSI, as Mr. Vallejo, but it also includes the SNAP program, which is for food, what we call in Spanish, the PAN. Okay, basically, as Neil mentioned before me, in Puerto Rico, we receive a block grant. Okay, in US, you receive certain amount per beneficiary. And when we receive the block grants, we receive a lesser amount than what we would be receiving if we were a part of the system as a state. Okay, again, SNAP applies, it used to apply in Puerto Rico, but in 1981, they took us out. And it applies to 2 possessions. It applies to USBI and it applies to Guam. As it happened with, and also we have SSI, we have SNAP, and we also have LIS, which is a supplemental income to buy medicines under Medicare Part D. Okay, so we have 3 types of benefits in this case. The Pena Martinez case was decided last August, beginning of August of this year, and it was a very favorable decision because of 2 things. The first thing being that obviously the plaintiffs won, but at the end of the decision, Judge Young, which was the judge that decided the case, he issued an injunction. An injunction is like an order saying to the federal government that they should allow people to who live in Puerto Rico to keep receiving these benefits. So actually what they are doing is they are forcing the issue that either the US government has to continue appealing at the court until they get to the Supreme Federal Court as well, or if that doesn't happen, they have an order to allow people that live in Puerto Rico to participate on those 3 programs, okay? At this point in time, the injunction lapses on October 30. It's expected that they will go to the circuit court and that they are going to request an extension of that period of time, the US government. Okay. And one of the things that was mentioned in the Pena Martinez case is that it's going to cost the federal government $23 billion in the next 10 years to allow those benefits in Puerto Rico. There's other cases running around. One of them that we know is Consejo de Salud. That one has to do with Medicare, Medicaid. They are waiting for what's going to happen with the Vallejo case. So that case is in the line, but there are also some other benefits, some other cases, sorry, that are pending review, that are being filed in other possessions. There are other that are being considered to be filed even here in Puerto Rico. Because if you see the GAO report from 2014 that lists federal welfare benefits, they list 29 welfare benefits that are eligible for US people, that people that live in continental US. And out of those, 15 do not apply to Puerto Rico. Okay, so we have a long way to go if we are keep going in the court case way, okay? What's the US government position? Basically, the US government has 3 main contentions here. Their first main contention is that people in Puerto Rico, we do not pay federal income taxes. The reply to that, and some of that is given in the cases, particularly in the Pena Martinez case, in the second case, is that people in Puerto Rico, in fact, they pay some taxes. Last year, we paid $3.5 billion of federal taxes. That's the first thing. The second thing is that even in US, beneficiaries to these plans usually do not pay taxes because they are people that have a very small amount of income. And the third thing, which is on my side, is that actually Puerto Rico taxing situation was not decided by Puerto Rico. It was decided by US in 1921 when they began giving tax exemptions to US companies that were setting up operations in Puerto Rico. So, I mean, the person that designed the actual taxing system was not us. We used it to our advantage, particularly in the 1950s, but it was not Puerto Rico who designed this current scenario. The second thing is that the US government is arguing it's going to be very costly to extend those benefits to Puerto Rico. As I mentioned before, SSI is going to be $23 billion in the next 10 years. If we take into account all the other plans, some people say that it might be as high as $50 billion per year. And I know Mr. Balmaceda will be speaking about the economic effect of these decisions shortly in a couple of minutes. And the third position of the US government is that giving access to Puerto Rico residents to these types of benefits is going to cause a disruption to the economy, okay? That argument is very, in my opinion, is the weakest argument of all, because it says that people in Puerto Rico will stop working and will just be collecting welfare benefits, which quite honestly, I find quite offensive by itself, the argument, okay? And these arguments, they are not new. They come from 2 Supreme Court cases from 40 years ago, the Califano case and the Harris case. Those 3 arguments were mentioned in those 2 cases 40 years ago. The last thing, 1 minute and a half that I have remaining, what's going to happen in the future? Well, it might be 3 things. One thing is that we prevail in court, that we win in the federal Supreme Court. The other thing is that the federal Supreme Court does not grant the review, that doesn't see the case, and then we would still be prevailing at the court level. A second thing, which is what we call an executive resolution, is that if the president orders the Secretary of Justice to withdraw from the cases, that doesn't seem to be happening with President Trump. Some people might argue that if Vice President Biden wins the election in November and takes office in January, he might withdraw from continuing the judicial cases, which that would be very favorable to us. But actually, the best resolution to these situations would be to get legislation that provides parity of the funds to people that live in Puerto Rico in the same manner as it is provided to people that live in the States. Okay, and just to wrap up, in my eyes, it's a matter of fairness. It's a matter of well-being of the people that live in Puerto Rico. So the just thing to do, the fair thing to do, is to grant access to people that live in Puerto Rico to those type of benefits in the same manner that is being done to people that live in the States. Obviously, and that's the reason why the Puerto Rico Chamber of Commerce is involved in this situation. This certainly has a lot of impact in the economic environment on the island, because people that receive this money is going to go to the supermarket, to the drugstore, to the doctor's office, to hospitals. They're going to buy insurance with this money. So actually, it will have a lot of benefits to the economic environment of Puerto Rico. So even though it's a human situation, it will also have a commercial impact in the island as well. Okay, and that's my summary in 10 minutes and 30 seconds. Sorry, I took 10 seconds more than I was supposed to. So thanks for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to the rest of the forum.